Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kinesthetic Learning Classroom Part 2. This is Part 2 of a two-part series. My name is Tony Marabito, and I am a staff development facilitator here at CLIU 21. Today, we will continue to discuss the topic of kinesthetic learning. If you have any questions or concerns after watching this recording, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll provide the link to the slide deck below this video so you can access it whenever you wish. All right, let's get started. This presentation is heavily based on the Kinesthetic Classroom Teaching and Learning Through Movement by Lengel and Kuczala. My goal today is to provide teachers in all content areas and grade levels with information and ideas on how to implement movement into the classroom to enhance the teaching and learning process. I will suggest activities and strategies for students to grow socially, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Part 1 consisted of parts 1, 2, and 3 of the book, and today will be parts 4, 5, and 6. So starting with developing class cohesion and improving classroom climate. So taking time to engage students in movement activities that will develop class cohesion is really important. Some benefits for engaging students in class cohesion activities are providing the brain with a much needed break, improving communication and listening skills, providing an opportunity for problem solving and higher level thinking, offering an environment that promotes laughter and fun while engaging learners, improving motivation and discipline, building relationships and general concern for one another, developing a sense of belonging, and probably most importantly, improving self-esteem. Next, we will talk about reviewing content. Reviewing material during the middle of class by using movement is ideal. Benefits of reviewing content through movement include providing an opportunity to use repetition to improve retention, allowing time for the brain to process and consolidate new information, presenting time for the brain to rejuvenate, improving motivation and discipline, waking up the body and the brain, creating a fun and exciting learning environment, and allowing students the chance to engage in a social environment. And then lastly, the last part we will cover is teaching content, learning by doing. So allowing students to use movement to grasp a new concept can be extremely beneficial and help in the retention of material. Learning by Doing, a book by Eric Jensen, describes a few reasons for increasing some of this implicit learning strategies. More information can be absorbed and may last longer. Every age group can learn and obtain implicit knowledge, and there's a cross-cultural transmission. Bridges may be formed that connect body and brain. So let's begin with developing class cohesion. Activities to support class cohesion. All right, so let me just talk a little bit about developing class cohesion and why you would do this. So you want to elevate emotional climate in the classroom. If students are having a good time in your classroom, if they are confident, if they are willing to take part in these kinds of activities, they're more likely to be successful in your classroom. If students are stressed and uncomfortable, it's going to be difficult to learn this information. I covered part of that in part 1. Developing class cohesion activities provides opportunities for problem solving and collaboration, and it also builds relationships and general concern, because students most likely will have to work together in a whole group setting or in a team setting. Now, I want to point out here, it's very important that this is not meant for daily use in the classroom, maybe once a month, twice a month, and it's going to take 30 to 50 minutes. So it is a good chunk of time, but I'm telling you, it's well worth it. My students loved this kind of activity, and we'd plan it out a few weeks ahead of time, and they would just really look forward to that on the calendar. You want to balance between non-competitive and competitive activities. There are two different groups and groupings, which I spoke about earlier. Team unity, which occurs when teams challenge each other, and then whole group, when the whole class works together. And then very important is to stress respecting and supporting classmates. This is supposed to be a fun activity that gives the students a break and also allows them to collaborate and move about the classroom. All right, so throughout this presentation, we do have some videos embedded, which I will stop and show, but I do have bulleted activities as well, and I can read through how to perform those activities in your classroom. So starting with the balloon tap, you're going to split the class into 3 or 4 equal groups. All team members will make a tight circle in the classroom. Members of each team must stay hooked together by either joining hands or linking forearms. Each team is given a balloon that is close in size to a volleyball. Each team has to stay linked together while tapping their balloon into the air. The participants can use any part of their body to keep the balloon up. After each team is given a few minutes to practice with one balloon, another can be added. If a balloon starts to drift away from a team, the entire team must stay linked together. So you can see the teamwork and collaboration that's occurring here. After a few minutes of practice, the real game begins. The first team to earn 3 or 5 points will win. A team can earn a point by keeping its balloon in the air longer than the other teams. As soon as the balloon hits the ground, the other team earns the points. So that is, you can use many different variations of that, but that is just one way to play balloon tap. Next, I will go to Mike and he will explain balloon volleyball.
Hello everyone, Mike here. Today we're going to be talking about developing class cohesion in two forms, both the team and whole group. Specifically for this activity, it's going to be focused on team. So you can see here I have a green balloon, and on the floor I've divided up using some tape into 3 distinct sections. I'm going to be joined today by my friend Tony and my other friend Kristen, and we are actually going to demonstrate balloon volleyball. So in the case that you're using an entire class, you want to divide your class up into 3 groups. You can have them stand in rows and rotate after each point is scored, but for the sake of this demonstration, we're just going to use the 3 of us and show you how this can work. So basically the idea is to keep the balloon in volley as long as you can. You have to hit it into another quadrant. The teams can hit the balloon as many times as they need to get it to the other quadrant. Some variations you may want to consider for younger students would be to have the students on their knees. Of course, practice safe distancing in terms of movement and things of that nature. So I'm going to start. I can hit it to either quadrant. In this case, we're using 3. You can't use 4 quadrants. You can use your entire classroom based on space and accessibility. Okay, so in this case, we saw Tony hit the ball into Kristen's quadrant, hit the floor, so Tony will score the point. We'll go for another volley for fun. Gotta watch out for Kristen, she can be pretty competitive. All right, so in this case, Kristen hit it into Tony's quadrant, so this would be a 1-1 score. And as I explained, we want to rotate through our teams so that all of the students had turns in both the front and back row. You can add another variation in which the students in the back row have to hit it before the front, and vice versa. So best of luck with your balloon activities.
Continuing on to more class cohesion activities, we will now cover name pass. You're going to have students gather around one another to make a small tight circle with their chairs. Students will sit as close as possible while still maintaining a level of comfort. To start the game, one student will hold the ball, say their name loudly, and pass the ball to the right. Everyone will do this at least 1 or 2 times with the goal of teaching everyone each other's names. Once all names are spoken, the games begin. Now the person with the ball must say the name of a person to whom they are passing the ball. If the name is not said correctly, the ball should not be passed. If a whistle is sounded, the ball should quickly switch directions. The goal is to get rid of the ball as soon as you get it. Once students feel some success, more balls could be added to the game. All balls will be traveling the same direction. The ultimate goal of the game is not to be stuck with 2 or more. The better your student's skill level, the more balls that can enter the game. If a participant is caught with more than 1 ball, he or she is out of the game. If you do not want to eliminate students from the game, you can invite everyone back after so many rounds. When the participants re-enter the game, the instructor will direct them to find new seats next to different players. A great way to learn each other's names when you're first starting out in the beginning of the semester or the beginning of the school year. Next, we'll go on to beat the pass. Have your students sit in a tight circle on the floor or in their chairs. Leave an open space between student 1 and student 20, assuming that you have 20 students, of course. Student 1 will stand up, speed walk around the circle, and sit in the open spot. All the other students will pass the ball around the circle while trying to keep up with the walker. When the ball gets completely around the circle, student 2 stands up to do the speed walk. Everyone passes the ball around the circle again, trying to keep up with student 2. The goal is for students to use teamwork as they quickly pass the ball to try to keep up with the student that is walking. Remember, you can try to use various locomotor movements as well. You don't just have to speed walk around the outside of the circle. But again, just another way to get students talking and engaged. Now I'll go to Mike to go over see a tag. This is definitely more of an elementary, middle school version of tag where bases are involved, but I'll let Mike do the rest of the explaining.
Hi everybody, Mike again. We're here now recording outside. We are once again talking about classroom cohesion, and in this case, we're going to talk about volleyball. Unfortunately, we have actually three of my friends today. I have Tony, Kristen, and we're going to have Jordan joining us here as well. Come on out here, Jordan. All right. And we are going to play see a tag. So if you take a look here at my setup, we have 3 safe zones marked by plates and rocks, of course, with a little bit of a light breeze today. The premise of see a tag is we'll have somebody that's it, and the rest of us will be trying to elude the person who's in, of course. If they get to a safe spot, they cannot be tagged. That's very, very important. So I'm going to start off as the person who's it. I'm going to ask my friend to join me here in the middle. Jordan, if you join us here in the middle.
Oh, me too?
Yeah. So spacing is probably important. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of space between myself and my friends. And you can use music for this. You can use a buzzer, timer, whatever works out well. I'm going to simply count to 3, and then I'm going to treat my friends here. Hopefully, everything works out well. 1, 2, 3. So, as you can see, I think my friend Jordan is going to be it. So we're going to come back to the middle. Jordan is now going to be it. And on the count of 3, so take us for one more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So as you can see, we all got the safe zones. I'd like to thank you for joining us. Another version here of classroom cohesion activity. One more variation to talk about with the game of see a tag that we demonstrated earlier is this idea that, so right now I'm it, Mike here, it, and is already on a base or one of our safe zones. And Tony is also trying to elude me, who's the person that's it. And what he is actually going to do is walk over and say, see ya. And he can remove his classmate from the base so that she has to find another safe zone, making the game a little bit more fun.
All right, now moving on to reviewing content. Reviewing content, just want to point out a few things before we go over some of the activities. When cognitive information is linked with movement, retaining and recalling the data become much easier. The first 10 minutes of class is ideal, or throughout the class, wherever you seem necessary, wherever you deem necessary, or the last 5 minutes of class is also ideal in this content review. So again, similar to the structure of the other activities, there will be some videos and there will be some explanations of games and reviewing content. Now, again, please try to capture your subject or content area. These are just games that you could be playing with your students. You're most likely going to be reviewing content. I tried to work these in almost every day. And again, I had a list on a poster board at the front of the classroom, and students were able to play and choose these review games just because they were so used to playing them, and they were almost trained to the point where they knew all the rules and specifications. So sit back and listen to Mike teach us how to play grab to gab.
Hi everybody, Mike here. We are back and we are talking about reviewing content. And in this case, we're going to be working on a partner activity. Joining me today, I have Tony and Kristen, and this is going to be grab to gab. So the way that this game is going to be played is I, as the teacher, am going to introduce a question to my students. They're going to have an opportunity, in this case, to write it down on their whiteboard and flip it over so that the other person cannot see the answer. Then we will have an object here in the middle. In this case, we're using a purple marker. As the teacher, I will say grab. The person who grabs the object first will have the opportunity to answer. If that person gets it right, they will receive 2 points. In the event that person gets the question wrong, the other person does have an opportunity to answer and still earn 1 point. So we're going to get started. We'll see how it plays out. I'm not going to tell you what my my bet on, we'll see. So we're going to start off with the question, which is going to be 6 plus 2 minus 3. So answers are in. Next step in the game is you can see that they have their hands on the desk. I, as a teacher, am going to say, grab. Tony has the grab. He answers the question correctly. So in this case, Tony would receive 2 points. We're going to try it again and see what happens. I'm going to present another question. We're using math. Of course, you could use any content area that serves you. Let's go with 7 plus 1 minus 4. Okay, so we have our answers recorded. They're hidden on the whiteboards. Grab. Tony has it, but you can see he got the question incorrect. So Kristen will now have a chance to answer 4, and she has it correct. So she would receive 1 point because although she did not grab the marker first, she did in fact get the answer correct. I want to thank my assistants here. Have a good day, everybody.
All right, now we move on to team test. I will give you the directions for team test. First, you're going to clear the center of the room, place students into 4 even teams, have each team sit in one of the 4 corners or near one of the corners. Each team will have a written form of the test with just questions, no answers. You're going to spread note cards out in the center of the room with the answers on them face down. On the teacher's signal, each team will send 1 team member racing to the center of the circle to pick up a card. This student is not allowed to look at the card until they get back to her team. As a team, they will decide which question the answer belongs to. They will then send a different team member to the center of the circle. This player will return the first card and grab a second one. As soon as he or she gets back to their team, they will flip the card. If they had this answer before, they will go back to the center, return the card, and get a new one. Team members caught looking at the card prior to taking it back to their team will result in a 15-second penalty. A team receiving a second offense will be given a 30-second penalty. The fastest team with all the correct answers wins the game. So that is how you play team test.
Everybody, Mike here.
The next activity will be volleyball review. This game is played with 1 beach ball and an obstacle that represents the net in the middle of the playing area. What I used to do is line desks down the middle, or you can just use chairs or just a strip of tape. The class is split into 2 even teams. 1 team is on one side of the obstacle while the other is on the other side. This game is set up with 3 rows, a front, middle, and back row. The beach ball is volleyed back and forth until 1 team allows the ball to hit the floor. There's absolutely no spiking in this game. If there's an accidental spike, a replay is called. If a spike appears to be intentional, the round automatically goes to the other team. The team that wins the round is given a review question. As a team, they will huddle to discuss the answer. The other team should huddle as well. 1 student will be called on to share the team's final answer. A different player will be called on each round to answer for the group. Each question is worth 2 points. If the team that wins the volley gets the answer incorrect, the other team can answer the question for 1 point. One game variation is to request that the ball be touched 2 to 3 times on each side before it crosses the center to get more students involved. Rotate after a point is scored, and be sure that each player has the opportunity to play every position. Next, I will go to Mike to explain cardio review.
Hey, Mike here, and we are here to talk about reviewing content in small groups. As you can see here, I have A, B, C, and D on the board with a different cardio exercise, which is the theme for this activity. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be joined by 2 classmates today. We have Tony and Kristen. I'm going to present the question as the teacher. I'm going to show them the options that I have here on my whiteboard. So the question I'm going to present to the students today is, what is the capital of Pennsylvania? So I'm going to show them the answer, or excuse me, the answers.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that they've collaborated in a group and they discussed what they think their answer is, they're actually going to perform as a group the cardio exercise to answer the question. Excellent. So you can see that they did push-ups for the letter D, and in this case, they would be correct with Harrisburg. We're going to use one more exercise or one more example, and the question to the class is, what element on the periodic table is represented by the letter H? And you can see here the examples that we've given. I'm going to show the group the answers. They're going to deliberate. And they're going to go with their answer. And they are hopping. And of course, you would see that once again, my smart group of students here did get the question correct. Thanks, everybody.
All right, now we'll move on to part 3 of this presentation, teaching content. So yes, you can absolutely teach content through movement. Studies show that learning while moving can trigger a great connection to the content that the students are learning. So teaching and learning through movement is well worth the time and effort. These activities can accompany or replace what you are already teaching. The goal of this section is to inspire you to be creative within your own process. Again, you can use some of these ideas for your own content areas, K to 12. So here are some ideas for you. In this section, there are no videos. I will just be explaining the different movements that can be used and give you an example for each subject. So let's start with elementary editing on the move. So you're going to allow students to work alone or with a partner. You're going to give each student a group a list of sentences that needs to be edited. Have a person or group walk while editing one sentence at a time. To demonstrate the editing, students should do the following. Have students raise their hands in the air to demonstrate a capital letter. Have students pause for commas and slightly bend their knees. Have students add a punctuation mark at the end of each sentence. The period will be demonstrated by going into a tuck position, bend down and hug your knees. The exclamation mark will be shown by jumping up and down on both feet at the same time. To demonstrate the question mark, the students will stand on one leg and make a hook-like action with the opposite arm. Also, apostrophes will be added by lifting the right arm and making a hook-like action. After all sentences are completed, the participants will compare their edited sentences while discussing any differences they have. As you can see, this does not take any longer than it normally would to edit a sentence. It's just involving some movement to get the students a little bit more involved and engaged in your practice. Next, we'll go on to secondary persuasive writing. So here's just an example of using the persuasive writing in the writing process. You're going to have students find a partner, allow each pair to mill around the room to find an object that can be held in their hand. Now give each pair 5 minutes to build a persuasive sales pitch for their object. Have partners decide who will play the role of a consumer and who will be a salesperson. Give each salesperson a sales slip that a customer will sign if he or she would buy the object based on their sales pitch. Students will stand up and circulate around the room. Consumers will walk around while waiting to be approached by a salesperson. Students playing the role of the salesperson will take their object and try to sell it to as many consumers as they can by using verbal communication and body language. Consumers interested in buying the object must sign the sales slip. After 5 minutes, have partners switch roles. So again, just a way to incorporate movement in persuasive writing, getting students up and out of their chairs. Continuing on now to some math activities. The first one I'll talk about is elementary math, and this is the activity called clusters. You can do clusters: addition, subtraction, multiplication, word problems, and square roots. Have students walk in a clockwise circle around the teacher. Announce a math problem using addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, or a word problem. The job of the students is to get into a cluster that tells the answer to a given problem. For example, if the instructor gave the example of 1 + 1, all students would get into clusters of 2 as quickly as possible. The teacher would recognize a cluster because the participants are standing close together with their arms linked to one another. If the students are unable to get into a cluster of correct number, they are eliminated from the game. Teachers can continue to play this game as an elimination game, or they can allow players back into the game after a few rounds. When the students are not playing in a round, have them perform fitness activities or use flip cards to practice their math skills. Again, just an example. You can use really any math equation to do that cluster activity. Next is secondary, solving an equation. So you're going to put students into teams of 6 or 7. You're going to make a set of laminated numbers 0 through 9, and also an X for the variable, as well as a addition sign, subtraction symbol, equal sign, division symbol for each group. Have one team come to the front of the room to demonstrate how to solve an equation with a variable while using movement and their bodies. Give the demonstration groups signs with which to work. By using their bodies and holding the signs in front of them, students will get in a straight line and show the equation. Show the class how to solve this equation while the students use their numbers and signs to show each step of the process. Each group member will have to move around to show each step. After this demonstration is completed, it is time for the groups to try it with their team. Give each team a set of laminated cards and 4 or 5 equations to solve. It would be very easy to continue this activity with problems of higher difficulty as well. So again, just another example of how you can use movement and just laminated cards or index cards, or have the students prepare their own cards for this activity. Next, we will talk about elementary science, and we'll give you an activity for the food chain. All right, so now we're going to play a game with producers, consumers, and decomposers. So you're going to divide your class into 3 groups for a tag game. You're going to have group 1 is going to be the plants, group 2 will be the prey, and group 3 will be the predators. So you will choose this for them, and then you can always switch, of course. You're going to clear a large area in your room or take the students outside. Make signs that label their roles to tape onto your students, or name tags will do. Most of your students will play the role of producers, as there are more plants than any other. In this game, they will be stationary. When they are tagged by prey, they are out of the game. There are 2 consumers, the predator and prey. The prey is a smaller group than the producers. They will walk or jog in a designated area to try to tag the producers while avoiding the predators. When they are tagged by a predator, they go off to the side and decompose, break down and shrink. The predators are the smallest group. They will move around while trying to tag the prey. When all of the players who are prey are captured and decomposing, they can start to tag one another. When predators are tagged, they will also go over to the area on the side to decompose. Play a few games so students can get to know each role. This will make a very fun way for students to understand the difference between different parts of the food chain. Next, we'll go over secondary chemical formula. To play this game, you will make cards with ion symbols printed on them, pass out the cards to students, explain that while the music is on, students are to walk at a medium speed around the room, greeting one another with the appropriate remark. When the music stops, students find the oppositely charged ion closest to them. Together, the 2 students, a positive and negative ion, must decide what proportion they will combine in. Decide on the name and chemical formula for the compound they would form, and be ready to tell the teacher or their neighboring pair. So again, just a fun way to add movement into the classroom in a science classroom. Lastly, we will go over a few social studies activities, one for elementary and one for secondary. The first will be about communities, urban versus rural. You're going to split the class into 2 teams with 1/3 on one team and 2/3 in the other. Have the small group stand in a large area of the room. Have the large group stand in a small area of the room. Discuss some differences between rural and urban communities. Ask students to consider differences that have not been discussed. Now, divide the class into 4 or 5 even teams. Inform teams that they must use movement and their bodies to demonstrate their characteristics or things they would see in a rural and urban community. Groups will need 6 demonstrations, 3 for each community. Groups will then perform their demonstrations for the other groups while explaining the different aspects of each community. This will allow students to really grasp the understanding of urban versus rural comparisons. Next, we'll go to secondary electoral college. State comparisons and multiple civic lessons can be used with this kind of activity. Point out that the number of electoral votes a state receives is also based on the number of congressional representatives it has in the House of Representatives. This leaves Oregon with 7 total electoral college votes and Pennsylvania with 21. Based on numbers, any 2 states can be represented. The physical size of a state and its relationship to the number of votes it receives can also be examined. For instance, a very large state like Montana has only 3 electoral college votes because of its small population and small representation in Congress. Give 3 students a very large part of the room. And a much smaller state like New York has 31 electoral college votes because of its much larger population density. Put all remaining students in a much smaller area of the room. This will give the students the opportunity to see in a visual kind of context how the Electoral College works. All right, so just wrapping up here, learning domains and developmental stage connection. There are 3 stages of development and learning: affective, cognitive, and psychomotor or physical. Cognitive, this domain involves knowledge and development of intellectual skills. Affective, this domain includes the manner in which we deal with things emotionally. And the psychomotor or physical, this domain includes the physical movement, coordination, and the use of motor skills. So the whole purpose of this presentation was to get students engaged, get teachers thinking of how to move students about the room and educate the whole child. Again, here I put a short presentation by the author of this book. I suggest watching this. It is a great short video, and you'll get a little bit more of the science behind the kinesthetic classroom. He does a much better job explaining it than I could ever do, but I think it's a great learning piece for teachers, and you'll really understand why this is so critical to use in your classroom. Thank you for watching this presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I would love to go through some of these activities. Being a classroom teacher for 8 years, my 4th and 5th grade students loved these activities, and I was able to think of additional activities based around some of this that I spoke about today. But students are even able to bring me games that I did not know of, and just getting students up and moving, the excitement. It was always great feedback from parents. So I do suggest having students move around the classroom, use some of these activities. And again, feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns, and I would be more than happy to walk you through. Thank you for watching.